Alright, so, first things first. Uh, I want to make a video on Eikaiwas. I feel like there's not enough videos exactly that talk about what they actually do, and I guess the history behind it. So, here goes nothing. Basically, I've been working in Eikaiwa for about 9 months now, and Eikaiwa literally means an English conversation school. Students are practicing English conversations there, and honestly, I feel like a lot of people that come to work in these Eikaiwas have a very different perception of it. Now, why does this school exist in the first place? An Eikaiwa pretty much exists because the Japanese education system doesn't really work per se. It's very theoretical based. It's very much reading and writing and actually no conversation. So therefore, in Asia, Japan often scores the lowest in terms of English scores in the region, lower than places like Thailand, which is still in a sense a developing nation. So basically, it's not realistic. The Eikaiwa is the bridge between that to help students, both children and adults, connect up and basically become fluent English speakers. So the Eikaiwa is essentially the speaking component that bridges this discrepancy. So you can probably guess now that there is a humongous staff turnover rate, hence the yearly contracts that are available by many companies. Now, coming to Japan, one of the things you're going to realize is that there is an intense working out. There's an intense weekly weekly work hour rate, basically. There's obviously humongous culture changes, so 97% Japanese here, so it's a bit of a shock, especially if you come from a Western country, which is usually quite diverse. And often you just train for a week and then you're pushed in front of the students, and before you know it, you're a teacher, which can be a shock to some people. Now, let's put this in the perspective of Japan. Japan is essentially, that place where people are like, oh, anime, manga, AK-48. But let's be honest here, that's a very non-realistic expectation of this country because, well, Japan is a country and there's actual people here who think just like us Westerners do, maybe with a Japanese culture and that, but it is a little bit different per se. So, one thing that you probably need to realize is that you need to be realistic. That just because you're Westerner, you aren't going to be getting everything you want. You're going to have to, basically submit to the culture. Like any other country, you are just going to have to, learn to live in that culture and just deal with it. Now, at the same time, your job is a very repetitious job. You just repeat the content-based material, whether it's paper-based, digital-based, and you teach the students, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit of how the English language actually works. Now, you may be teaching kids, you may be teaching some adults. Who knows? That's up to you. Either way, that is a challenge, and initially, for the first 3 months, that job will be very, very, very intense, but after a while, you get used to it, and then you learn the routine, and then it goes the same way each day, which, it will feel very repetitious, and it's very difficult to break that barrier in terms of promotions, because it is very Japanese orientated, obviously. You're the foreigner, and for you to exceed that expectation is very competitive, and extremely difficult. It's very rigid culture in that sense, but that's the expectation here, and as long as you go into that knowing that, you should be fine. You can definitely use the opportunity here to do many other things in that sense there. So, at the same time, as a foreigner, there are some benefits as well. What are those benefits? You'll be treated a lot softer because you are a foreigner. You will be assumed that, you won't understand how it works, so you'll be treated a little bit nicer than Japanese staff. You will probably be paid a lot better than your fellow staff members, which is a bit of a hit and miss in my opinion. But that's just the way it rolls. So you got to work with the system a little bit here. But it's definitely a rewarding challenge if you come with the right expectations. Okay, so this is not a job for everyone, and I cannot stress to you enough that this is a job that you need to have social skills. So if you are very awkward, if you don't know how to talk to people, if you can't think on your feet, then I suggest you learn to before you apply for a job here. Otherwise, get to a fluent level in Japanese and find another job here, because you will find Eikaiwa work extremely stressful, and I can even apply to ALT work, because ultimately both jobs you do need a degree of social skills to participate and be fully competent for that job. So, how does my day run? Well, from 12 to 9, I can't exactly say my company, but from 12 to 9, I do work and I teach a couple of hours. On Saturdays, I teach for 8 hours, but it depends on the actual day. And I opted to teach also children. Now, initially, I hated teaching children, but I have grown to love teaching kids. It was definitely a humongous challenge, but you learn and you definitely do realize that it can be quite an enjoyable experience. One thing you realize is that, they're kids. You're a teacher, you're the adult, you direct them, and you ultimately have control. And while parents in this country, I feel, do have a bit of a hands-off policy, uh, it's definitely your chance to make English a really enjoyable experience for the kids especially, and you can really play around. Just know that you need to be strict when you need to be, and don't be afraid to be strict. Now, on top of that, teaching adults of all different levels, yes, you definitely start to question your own schooling experience and how you were seen by teachers, because sometimes you do get students who are questionable and clearly don't study enough, and you have to wonder why are they learning English for, because they just don't improve after week after week. But there are many students who do improve, and it's really a joy to watch these students progress and the excitement on their faces when they learn something new and they get it, and that's a really fun thing to do. So you need to see your job for what it is. It's not exactly a job that will push you very far, but at the same time, if you can make the small goals work for you, it's a job that can be quite rewarding. And I do know people that have stayed in this job for such a long time, because ultimately their expectation of the job is fitted for the job, and that applies to any job, no matter where in the world you go. It's all about the expectation and whether you've correctly put the expectation right for that particular role. Now, another thing too, which I always find really surprising, you might see this a lot on the forums and how Eikaiwas tend to be very pushy about, selling their products. But I think people forget that, it's marketed as a business. It's written on their websites. We are a business. We want you to sell stuff. So don't come to a role like this and be like, oh, I don't want to sell stuff, because you're going to have to. And ultimately, they need to make money somehow. If you don't want to do that, then go for an ALT role where it's not as business orientated. It can be government, for example, the JET program, which is very good for that, and you don't have to worry about selling products. But if you do decide to go for an Eikaiwa, please note that you will be selling products. So if you are not competent, if you're not ready to sell products, then this is probably not the job for you. And again, maybe study more Japanese and get another job, because otherwise you will probably find it a bit of a horrific experience. So definitely, again, be realistic. You'll have days off and that, but those will be probably set to the holidays, so you won't get that much days off as well. So make sure you are in healthy condition, and make sure that even when you're down, you can still work pretty well, because the expectation here is that you will be forced to work, and this is just the accepted culture here. And if you're not ready for it, then again, it's probably not the best idea for you to come to Japan. Now, as you can probably tell also, I am Australian, so as an Australian, we do have different expectations as an English teacher. Often, because most Asian countries and most countries in the world where they teach English they do teach in an American accent, so students do have a little bit of difficulty to understand the Australian accent, and I do speak quite fast as well, which proves to be very difficult for my students, but I am trying to learn to slow it down a little bit. But this is a great opportunity for us Aussies to, I guess, share our very interesting culture, our really funny slang as well. So it's actually more of a fun experience to actually see students trying to understand what chucky and chuck up is, because their faces are just priceless when you ask them about it. Now, outside of all of this, it's so important to find a hobby. Why do I say that? When you're working 45-hour weeks, remember it's an intense working hour rate, it's really important that you do find something to do on the side, because of the group mentality in this country. It's very hard to actually get into the groups, to get, to meet more Japanese people, because they will tend to want to push you aside and be like, oh, well, I don't want to invite you with my friends because it's a bit awkward. And thinking that's just the culture here. Like, in many Asian countries, it's really seen as bizarre to just struggle conversation with random people. Actually, it's very bizarre. So you doing that actually intimidates people here in Japan more than actually really encourage them. Maybe if you're in a drunken sprawl and you're in a club, maybe that might be different. But for the most part, it is seen as a little bit, embarrassing. And when you have a culture of saving face, it's not the right thing to do. So, get a hobby and meet people from there, and that's probably your best way of, making friends and actually being able to enjoy the community here in Japan, because obviously you can't be just sightseeing all the time. You want to be doing with people, so why not participate in a hobby? So if you're going to come here, come with another ambition, another thing to do, and it will really enrich your experience in this amazing country. Now, for me, I do dance here. The dance scene here is intense. It's such a beautiful thing here, and it's really challenging. As well as that, I absolutely love the fashion here. The shopping here is incredible. Maybe because the clothes also fit me as well, but I love the style here, and it really inspires me in terms of my creativity. I absolutely love big cities, Tokyo and Osaka. And also, definitely, like, if you can, learn the language. Like, for us English speakers, Japanese is very difficult, and I'm only just getting there, but it's every little step is like amazing, and it's knowing that I can understand a little bit more every day is really fun. But that's the thing, when you come to work in an Eikaiwa, you need to understand too that you need to have a life outside of it. So honestly, altogether, it's all about coming with the right expectations. But once you come with the right expectations, it will be fulfilled, and that comes through research and through understanding and being respectful to the culture and keeping an open mind. I think people forget that, to keep an open mind, and I have met people who have done Eikaiwa programs, who are in LT programs, who, they don't come with an open mind, and they're very restrictive about what Japan is, and it disappoints them and it shatters them, and you can see that's the reason why they go back after a year, or they even break their contract. So don't do that. Come here with the right expectations, be open-minded, and Japan will be a great country for you to live in. See ya.